Dark space was quiet, too quiet. Every sensor array across the rimward sectors pulsed in tense rhythm, sweeping empty voids that had once burned with battle. The war had ended, or so the galaxy believed. For weeks, signals had fallen silent, fleets had gone missing, and even the war-hardened Xylar Dominion hesitated to move beyond their fortified borders. Yet in that silence, a new light appeared, cold, sharp, and artificial. It wasn't a star. It was a ship. Humanity's ship, and the galaxy was about to remember what real fear felt like. The Xylar Patrol had first contact. 2 cruisers and a corvette, standard rim scouts. They detected a faint energy reading at the edge of System 9847 Gamma near a dying sun. The signal didn't match any registry. No known faction used such primitive transponder codes. Captain Threx assumed it was debris, maybe an old colony transport drifting from forgotten wars. He ordered an intercept, his claws clicking impatiently against his command chair. "Bring it to visual," he hissed. The screen brightened. The object was large, too large. A shadow eclipsing the weak starlight. Smooth black armor swallowed the surrounding void. It emitted no power signature, no thermal radiation. It was like a mountain drifting in darkness. "Size estimate?" Threx demanded. "Unknown, Captain," the sensor officer replied, his mandibles twitching. "Rangefinder cannot compute. It exceeds database parameters." The crew exchanged nervous glances. As they drew closer, the lights of the Xylar ships illuminated metallic lines. Angular, human design, unmistakable and ancient. Letters carved into the armor, weathered but proud, UHS Leviathan, Humanity, Threx whispered. The word was older than his species' history books. Humanity had vanished centuries ago, after their final war, after they burned half the Orion arm clean of life. No one knew where they went. Some said extinction, others exile, but the stories always ended the same way. When humanity fought, galaxies trembled. The patrol transmitted a standard challenge signal. No response. A second signal, still silence. Then the Leviathan's hull began to glow. "Power surge! Massive energy buildup!" Before the Xylar could react, a single beam erupted from the Leviathan's side, a thin, focused lance of white light. It struck the nearest cruiser, and in a heartbeat, the entire ship disintegrated into vapor. No explosion, no debris, just nothing. The remaining ships turned to flee. "Jump! Jump now!" Space folded and then screamed. The Leviathan's gravity wells ripped open their exit vectors. Their drives overloaded. The corvette's hull imploded under pressure. The last cruiser tried to send a distress signal, but before the message left the antenna, the Leviathan spoke. A deep voice, metallic, ancient, but human. "This is Admiral Reyes, Terran Command. The Leviathan has returned, and across hundreds of listening posts, the galaxy froze. Every AI, every commander, every civilian who intercepted that message felt the same chill crawl up their spine. Humanity was back. Far from the battle site in the Galactic Union headquarters on Vathros Prime, alarms screamed across every hall. Diplomatic channels went silent. Admiral Sarath of the Union Fleet listened to the recording again and again. He couldn't believe it. "They can't be alive," he muttered. That war ended 1,000 years ago, but the data was real. The Leviathan existed. Within hours, rumors spread. Colonies locked down. Trade routes shut. Pirates vanished. Even the feared warlords of the Grith Collective pulled their fleets back to home space. No one wanted to be near the humans when they decided what to do next. Out in deep space, the Leviathan floated in silence again. Inside, cold corridors hummed with power. Thousands of human soldiers slept in cryogenic pods, their armor bearing the insignia of a forgotten empire, United Human Systems. In the command chamber, Admiral Reyes stood alone, watching the star maps update after centuries of drift. Status? He asked the ship's AI. All systems restored. Temporal deviation, 972 years. Humanity no longer holds any known territories. Reyes stared at the holographic projection. Planets once blue and green were marked red. Dead worlds. "They forgot us," he said quietly. "All of them. Orders, Admiral?" Reyes turned slowly. His reflection shimmered across the polished glass. "Prepare the fleet. We're not alone anymore." Outside, the Leviathan's main hangars began to open. Massive mechanical arms extended, awakening escort ships that had slept since the final war. Engines roared to life. Space burned blue with fusion light. Far away, in a quiet mining system, a group of alien scavengers picked up the growing energy signatures. They thought it was just a derelict fleet powering up. They sent a drone to investigate. It never came back. An hour later, all of Sector 9 went dark. Across the galaxy, empires whispered the same words. The humans are coming. They remembered the legends, how the humans had fought the gods of the void, how they had turned dying stars into weapons, how they had refused to surrender even when the universe itself burned. And now, their greatest ship had awakened. The Leviathan's engines ignited. Breaking the silence of space, Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, his voice steady. Set course for the core worlds. It's time they remembered what fear feels like. And as the Titanic ship moved, reality itself seemed to bend. Every eye in the galaxy turned toward that cold light, knowing the age of peace was over. Humanity had returned, not as explorers, not as diplomats, but as a warning, and the galaxy finally understood the meaning of terror. The news of the Leviathan's return spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, every power, great and small, scrambled for answers. Governments denied it. Scientists called it a hoax. Yet the evidence was impossible to ignore. Entire fleets vanishing without a trace, systems going dark, signals cut mid-transmission. Something was moving through space, something too large, too silent, too fast. And wherever it went, fear followed. The Galactic Union Council gathered in emergency session. The chamber was vast, filled with hundreds of alien species, some insectoid, some reptilian, some beings of light and plasma, but all spoke in trembling voices. "This cannot be humanity," said Chancellor Orvax, his translucent tendrils shaking. "They are extinct. Ancient myths! No creature could survive 1,000 years in deep space." Admiral Sarath stood tall beside him. Unlike the politicians, Sarath had seen the sensor recordings himself. "My fleet's probes confirmed the hull markings. It's Terran design. The Leviathan class was real. You all read the records of the old wars. If that ship survived, we face extinction." The chamber erupted in chaos. Dozens shouted at once. Some demanded the Union build new weapons. Others wanted to flee to the outer rim. A few even suggested surrender, before a single human word had been spoken. Sarath slammed his hand against the table. "Enough! You think panic will save us? You have no idea what those creatures are capable of." He paused, his eyes dark. They fought the Void Lords when no one else dared. They burned half the stars in the Orion Arm to stop them, and they won. The silence that followed was heavier than metal. No one argued. Everyone remembered the stories, the old human wars, when entire empires vanished in days, when humanity's fleets fought like storms and their soldiers marched like gods. Finally, Orvax whispered, "What do they want now?" Sarath stared at the stars outside the chamber window. "I don't know, but if they've returned, they're coming for something." Meanwhile, deep aboard the Leviathan, Admiral Reyes watched the stars slide by on the main viewport. The ship glided silently through the void, its black hull absorbing light. Around it, escort ships took formation. Frigates, destroyers, drones, ancient machines reawakened after centuries of sleep. "Status of communication scans?" he asked. "Galactic chatter has increased 300%, the ship's AI replied. Its voice was calm, almost gentle. "Multiple civilizations attempting to locate us. One has dispatched fleets toward the neighboring sectors." Reyes gave a small nod. "Let them come. I want to see what they've become." He moved to the cryo chamber where thousands of human soldiers slept. Rows of silver pods stretched endlessly, each labeled with name, rank, and unit. He stopped at one, Commander Lyra, his second in command. He placed his hand on the glass. "Time to wake up, old friend," he murmured. Moments later, the pod hissed open, steam curling through the air. Lyra gasped, blinking as the ship's dim lights came into focus. "Admiral, how long?" "Almost a millennium," he said quietly. Her expression hardened. "And the galaxy?" "Different faces. Same problems. They forgot us. They forgot what we stood for. She studied him for a moment. Then what's our mission now? Reyes looked back toward the stars. To remind them who we are. In the Terath Dominion, on a fortress moon near the edge of known space, a fleet of warships assembled. Their leader, Warlord Szeth, watched the holographic map with a cruel grin. Humans, he growled. Ancient ghosts. I will crush them and wear their ship as a trophy. His advisors shifted uneasily. Warlord, the energy readings from their weapons. I fear no ghosts. Szeth roared. Send every ship we have. Find them! Within hours, hundreds of Terath ships launched into the void, their engines burning red. They were powerful, fast, and armed with plasma cannons capable of shattering moons. But they were flying into a storm they could not imagine. The Leviathan detected them first. Enemy fleet approaching. Vector 034 by 12, reported the AI. Approximately 300 vessels. Lyra turned to Reyes. Orders? Approximately 300 vessels. Lyra turned to Reyes. Orders? Reyes watched the tactical screen as glowing dots filled the map. Deploy the drones. Test their resolve. The ship's hangar bays opened, releasing thousands of small black drones. They moved like a swarm, silent and precise, vanishing into the dark. The Terath fleet didn't even see them coming. One by one, their ships went offline, engines cut, weapons dead, systems frozen. It wasn't destruction, it was domination. Then the Leviathan spoke again. This is Admiral Reyes of the United Human Systems. You have violated Terran space. Leave now! The Terath commander laughed. Terran space? There is no Terran space! A beam of light pierced the void. Szeth's flagship disappeared. The rest of the fleet broke instantly. Ships scattered, engines burning, fear overwhelming reason. Reyes turned away from the screen. They never learn, he said quietly. Lyra stared at him. You could have destroyed them all. I didn't have to, Reyes said. Terror spreads faster than death. Back in the Galactic Union, Admiral Sarath received the Terath distress calls. Static, screams, and then silence. His aides looked pale. What happened to them? One whispered. Sarath exhaled slowly. The humans gave them a choice. And they chose wrong. He turned to his officers. Send word to all sectors. Prepare the fleets. Humanity has declared its presence. The galaxy will never be the same again. Outside, the stars shimmered, cold and endless. Somewhere out there, the Leviathan moved, a ghost of the past, carrying the wrath of a forgotten empire. And the galaxy waited, breathless, for what came next. The Leviathan continued its silent voyage through the stars, leaving wreckage and whispers behind it. Every system it passed through felt the chill of its shadow. Entire colonies powered down their beacons to avoid notice. Mining stations sealed themselves underground. The galaxy had grown soft during its centuries of peace, and now something unstoppable moved among them. Inside the command bridge, Admiral Reyes stood motionless, staring at the holographic map of the galactic core. His eyes lingered on a bright cluster marked in blue. There, he said quietly. Earth's last recorded coordinates. Commander Lyra folded her arms. If it even still exists. Reyes didn't answer. He remembered the last days of the human dominion, the endless wars, the evacuations, the final order to preserve what remained of humanity's legacy. The Leviathan was built not just as a weapon, but as a promise. We will return. Plot a course, Reyes said. We find home. The ship's engines roared to life, bending space around it. In the Galactic Union capital, panic was turning into calculation. The council chambers buzzed with arguments and fear. We cannot defeat them militarily, Admiral Sarath declared. You saw what happened to the Terath fleet? They were wiped out in minutes. Then we talk, said Chancellor Orvax. Open communication. Offer a truce before they decide we're a threat. Sarath looked grim. You don't understand. Humanity doesn't negotiate from fear. If they've come back, it's for a reason, and it won't be peace. At that moment, a communication officer burst into the chamber. Incoming message, it's from the human ship. Every being in the hall froze. The screen flickered, and Admiral Reyes appeared. Tall, calm, his eyes like carved stone. Behind him, the cold light of the Leviathan's command deck glowed. "This message is addressed to all sentient civilizations within range," he began. "We are the descendants of Earth. We are humanity. We have returned from exile to reclaim what was ours." Gasps filled the room. "We do not seek war," Reyes continued, "but we will not tolerate aggression. Those who remember the past will understand this warning. Do not interfere. Do not threaten us." The Leviathan watches. The transmission ended. The chamber erupted in chaos again. Some cheered. Others shouted that humanity was declaring dominance. Sarath just stared at the empty screen. "They're warning us," he said softly. "And that means they're preparing for something." Aboard the Leviathan, Lyra studied the navigation charts. "Admiral, scans confirm what we feared. Earth is gone." Reyes turned slowly. "Gone?" "Destroyed, sir. Records suggest it was during the collapse wars. The planet was bombarded, its orbit destabilized. Only fragments remain." For a long moment, Reyes said nothing. The crew waited in silence. Finally, he whispered, "We fought to save humanity, and there's nothing left to save." Lyra stepped closer. "Then why keep fighting?" Reyes looked up, his eyes hard again. "Because humanity was never just a planet. It was a fire. And if even one ember still burns, we will keep it alive." The AI spoke. "Admiral, detecting faint human signals from the Perseus fringe. Genetic and linguistic markers, 87% probability of human origin." Reyes's gaze sharpened. "Survivors? Possible descendants?" The AI confirmed. Reyes straightened. "Set course. If our people still exist, they will know who we are, and the galaxy will know we're not ghosts." At the edge of the Perseus fringe, a small human colony thrived in secret. The settlers called themselves the Freeborn. They had long believed the legends of ancient humans who once ruled the stars, of the gods of war who vanished into darkness. Most dismissed those tales as myths, until now. Far above their dusty world, sensors detected a massive object descending from orbit. Panic spread through the colony. "It's not a Union ship," the comm officer said, voice shaking. "It's huge, metallic, old design." The colony's governor, Mara Kellen, stared at the data feed. "Open visual." The screen brightened, and the Leviathan filled the sky. Mara whispered, "By the stars." They were real. Moments later, a voice echoed across every frequency. "This is Admiral Reyes of the United Human Systems. We are not your enemies. We are your ancestors." When Reyes and Lyra descended to the colony, thousands gathered to watch. The humans of the fringe had never seen anything like them. Armor forged of dark steel, the symbol of the old Terran eagle still shining faintly on their chests. Mara approached cautiously. "You're from Earth?" Reyes nodded. "We left long ago to protect what was left of our kind, and now we've returned." The colonists fell silent. Hope and fear mingled in their eyes. Mara spoke again, her voice trembling. "If you truly are what you say, what happens now?" Reyes looked around at the small settlement, the fragile domes, the people living in the shadow of giants. "Now," he said softly, "we rebuild." But far above, hidden among the stars, Union spy satellites recorded everything. They transmitted every word, every image, every moment back to their command. And when the Council saw humanity's return to its descendants, they knew, if the humans united again, no power in the galaxy could stand against them. The Chancellor's voice trembled. "Admiral Sarath, what do we do?" Sarath stared at the screen, watching the Leviathan rise into orbit once more. "There's only one option left," he said coldly. "We strike first." And so, as humanity found hope again, the galaxy began to prepare for war. The Leviathan's return to the Perseus fringe changed everything. For the first time in centuries, the word human carried power again. The freeborn colonies, once scattered and weak, now looked to the great battleship in orbit as a symbol, a legend made real. Across the dust plains, people cheered when they saw its dark silhouette pass overhead. It gave them hope. But it also drew attention. In the hidden halls of the Galactic Union, that same hope was called danger. Admiral Sarath stood before the War Council, his voice calm but sharp. They've found descendants. They're rebuilding. Every hour we wait gives them strength. If we don't stop them now, there won't be a later. Chancellor Orvax looked uneasy. We risk everything if we attack. The people are terrified already. They remember the stories, the fire wars, the Terran judgment. They fear what will happen if we provoke them. Sarath leaned forward. They are the provocation. You saw what they did to the Trath fleet. 300 ships gone without a single casualty. If that's a warning shot, what do you think a full assault looks like? The council fell silent. Finally, Orvax sighed. Very well. What do you propose? A strike fleet, Sarath said. Silent approach. We take out their communications relay first, then target the Leviathan while it's stationary. No warning. No time to retaliate. Several councilors protested, but Sarath didn't waver. This isn't murder, it's survival, the order was given. The Union's most advanced warships, the Vigilant, Star Reach, and Vornak's Spear, began their journey toward the Perseus fringe, cloaked in electromagnetic silence. On the Leviathan, Admiral Reyes stood before the holographic image of the colony. His crew was working tirelessly, sending supplies, deploying drones to fortify defenses, and helping rebuild the ruined settlements. Commander Lyra walked up beside him. They believe in us, she said. Reyes nodded. They need something to believe in. After all these centuries, humanity deserves a home again. Lyra hesitated. Do you think the others will let that happen? Reyes gave her a small smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. No, which is why we prepare. He turned to the AI. Begin Phase 2. Activate orbital defenses and deploy scout wings. If the Union makes a move, I want to see them before they see us. Affirmative, Admiral, replied the AI. In the hangars below, human pilots awoke from cryo-sleep. Fighters long dormant came alive, their engines lighting up the dark. The sound of old machines returning to life echoed through the ship like thunder. Hours later, in deep space, the Union fleet approached. Hidden by stealth fields, their captains whispered nervous prayers. Final coordinates locked, said the Vigilance navigator. Targeting Leviathan's orbit. Sarath's voice came over the secure channel. You have your orders? Strike hard, strike fast. Humanity must not rise again. The ship spread out, forming a wide arc. The lead vessel powered its main cannons, silent flashes of light building behind the hull. Then, before they could fire, something happened. Every screen flickered. Every control froze. System override, shouted an officer. We've been hacked! Impossible. The Union's encryption was the best in the galaxy. But the truth was undeniable. One by one, their ships went dark. Then the communications channel opened. Reyes appeared on screen, calm, unhurried. You shouldn't have come. Sarath's voice broke through static.
How did you...
Reyes cut him off. We built the systems you use. You upgraded the technology, but you never understood it. You've been using our tools for centuries. Outside, the stars lit up. Dozens of Leviathan drones decloaked, surrounding the Union ships in perfect silence. Lower your weapons, Reyes said. I won't warn you again. Sarath clenched his jaw. Fire everything! The fleet opened fire. Plasma beams, kinetic warheads, antimatter bursts, all hurled toward the Leviathan. But the battleship didn't even move. A shimmering energy field absorbed every blast like rain hitting glass. Then the Leviathan responded. A single pulse rippled outward, an invisible shockwave that disabled every enemy engine, every weapon, every life support system. The Union ships drifted powerless, their lights flickering. Sarath's crew stared at their dead consoles. We've lost everything, someone whispered. On the Leviathan's bridge, Reyes turned away from the screen. End transmission. Lyra looked at him carefully. You could have destroyed them. I could destroy all of them, Reyes said quietly. But that's not the mission. The mission is survival. When the crippled fleet limped home days later, the galaxy changed overnight. Rumors spread faster than light. The Union's greatest armada had been neutralized without a fight. No deaths, no explosions, just silence. Many called it mercy. Others called it a message. Inside the council chamber, Orvax stared at Sarath with fury. You promised victory. Sarath's voice was hoarse. You don't win wars against legends. You endure them. He looked at the stars on the screen, thousands of glowing points across black space. We've woken something ancient, he said, something we don't understand. Back in the Perseus Fringe, the freeborn colony thrived under the Leviathan's protection. For the first time in centuries, humans looked up at the night sky with hope instead of fear. Children watched as the dark battleship passed overhead, its engines painting blue streaks across the stars. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, watching the growing lights of the colony below. Message received from the Union, said the AI. They request a summit. Lyra raised an eyebrow. A peace summit? Reyes gave a quiet nod. That's what they'll call it. But we both know what it really is. A test, Lyra said. He smiled faintly. Exactly. The Leviathan turned slowly, its engines flaring as it changed course toward neutral space. Behind it, the people of the Fringe waved to the heavens, unaware that their protectors were walking straight into the heart of a trap. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy prepared to face humanity, not as ghosts of the past, but as masters of the future. The summit was set on Alaris Station, a vast orbital hub floating between neutral territories, technically belonging to no empire, claimed by everyone, and trusted by no one. It was the perfect place for a peace meeting, or an ambush. From the Leviathan's bridge, Admiral Reyes watched as the massive structure grew larger on the screen. Its silver rings spun slowly, lit by artificial sunlight. Dozens of ships from different civilizations drifted nearby, forming a glittering wall of watchers. Commander Lyra stood beside him, arms crossed. It looks peaceful, she said softly. Reyes gave a faint smile. So does a minefield. Do you think they'll actually talk? They'll pretend, he replied. They want to see if we bleed. The Leviathan moved gracefully into docking orbit. Its engines dimmed, its weapon systems went silent, but everyone watching knew the ship was never truly unarmed. Its presence alone was enough to make entire fleets hesitate. Inside Alaris Station's Grand Council chamber, the tension was sharp enough to cut. Representatives from a dozen species filled the hall, their faces lit by holographic lights. Cameras hovered silently, broadcasting every moment to the galaxy. When Admiral Reyes entered, the room fell into uneasy silence. He wore no weapon, no armor, just a dark uniform marked with the Terran Eagle. Even so, no one dared move as he passed. At the far end, Chancellor Orcs sat beneath the glowing Union emblem. Beside him, Admiral Sarath's cold eyes never left Reyes. Admiral Reyes, Orcs began, voice trembling slightly. We welcome you to the Galactic Union. This meeting is meant to open dialogue, to prevent conflict. Reyes nodded once. Dialogue is possible, he said, as long as truth comes first. Orcs hesitated. Truth? Reyes's gaze swept the room. Your empires were built on the ashes of ours. You use our technology, our history, even our myths, but you erased our name. Humanity didn't vanish. You just forgot us. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sarath stood, his voice hard. We didn't forget. We remembered what you did. The wars, the destruction, the extinction of entire worlds. You call yourselves saviors, but you were monsters. Reyes's expression didn't change. You mistake strength for cruelty. We did what we had to do to survive the void. And we paid the price for it. The tension thickened. Lyra, standing behind Reyes, scanned the chamber subtly. Her wrist display flickered, a hidden signal. She leaned close to Reyes and whispered, Admiral. Sensors picking up a cloaked energy spike below the platform. Multiple points. Reyes didn't look at her. His tone remained calm. Weapons? Confirmed. At least 6 charges, likely remote-triggered. He sighed softly as though bored. So much for peace. Orcs was still speaking. Admiral, if humanity truly seeks coexistence, then you must disarm the Leviathan and... Reyes raised a hand. Before you finish that sentence, I'd recommend telling your security teams to check beneath this platform. Orcs blinked in confusion. What are you... A deep alarm blared. Holographic screens across the chamber flared red. Security breach detected, shouted an officer. Explosives, Sector 3, armed. The council erupted into chaos. Guards rushed in from every direction. Sarath froze, realization hitting him too late. Reyes turned to him, his voice low and steady. You wanted to test if we bleed. Instead, you've shown us how desperate you are. Lyra's voice crackled over comms. Admiral, charges disabled. Leviathan drones intercepted the detonators. Reyes gave a small nod. Good work. He looked back at Sarath. You planned to kill me and call it defense. Now the galaxy sees you for what you are. Sarath's face twisted with fury. You think this changes anything? You can't stand against the entire galaxy. Reyes stepped closer, his shadow falling across Sarath. We already have. Within minutes, the Leviathan's presence filled every broadcast in the galaxy. Footage showed its drones saving the station, stopping the explosions, and even protecting alien delegates. For the first time, the humans were not seen as conquerors, but as protectors. Public opinion shifted overnight. Civilizations that had feared the humans now questioned their own leaders. On distant worlds, civilians shouted in the streets, "The Leviathan saved us!" The Union government, humiliated, began to fracture. But Admiral Sarath wasn't done. He stood in the shadows of his war room, speaking quietly to unseen figures through encrypted transmission. The people may see them as heroes, he said, but we will remind them what they truly are. Begin Project Eclipse. The voice on the other end was cold. Are you certain? That weapon hasn't been tested since the collapse. Sarath's eyes glowed faintly under the dim lights. It doesn't need to be tested. It just needs to fire once. Back aboard the Leviathan, Reyes watched the news broadcasts with quiet disinterest. They're spinning it, Lyra said. Half the reports claim we staged the attack ourselves. Reyes smirked faintly. That's fine. Let them argue. The truth doesn't need their approval. He turned toward the stars outside. But I can feel it, Lyra. The Union isn't finished. They'll strike again harder. Something's coming. Then we hit first, she said. He shook his head. No, we wait, we watch. The next move they make will reveal their hand. The AI interrupted. Admiral, deep space sensors have detected an anomaly. Massive energy signatures near the Union border. Configuration unknown. Reyes's expression darkened. Show me. On the screen, a colossal formation began to take shape, something vast, mechanical, and unnatural. Project Eclipse, the AI said quietly. Weapon class unknown. Estimated power. Catastrophic. Reyes stared into the glowing void. So they built a weapon. He turned to Lyra, his voice a low growl. Then we'll show them what a real one looks like. And as the Leviathan's engines flared to life, the stars trembled. The storm was no longer coming. It had already begun. The storm was no longer coming. It had already begun. Deep in the cold reaches of space near the Union border, Project Eclipse came alive. It was not a ship nor a station. It was something older, larger, a weapon born from the fragments of ancient Terran science and fused with alien engineering. A moon-sized construct shaped like a hollow sphere, its surface crawling with glowing patterns of energy. At its core pulsed a single blinding eye of light, the Singularity Core, capable of bending gravity and tearing space apart. Admiral Sarath stood on the Eclipse's command bridge, surrounded by pale blue holograms. His eyes gleamed with grim satisfaction. Humanity thinks themselves gods, he said softly. Let's remind them that even gods can die. His second-in-command, a thin, insectoid officer, hesitated. Sir, the weapon's stability is not confirmed. Firing could what? Sarath snapped. Destroy us? Then we will die making history. He turned toward the stars, where distant sensors tracked the Leviathan's movements. Target locked! Begin the charge! Across the Eclipse's surface, massive conduits opened like wounds, and blue energy crackled outward, spreading across the void. The weapon began to hum, a deep, thunderous vibration that could be felt across nearby systems. On the Leviathan, alarms screamed through the corridors. Massive energy buildup detected, the AI reported. Source, Union territory. Magnitude beyond known parameters. Commander Lyra ran to the main console. Show it. The holographic display expanded, revealing the image of the colossal weapon. Even Reyes paused, silent for a long moment. That's not a station, he said finally. That's a doomsday engine. It's targeting us, Lyra said. If that thing fires, we won't have time to dodge. Reyes stood straight, his voice calm and firm. Then we stop it before it fires. He turned to his officers. Deploy full fleet formation. Recall all drones and wake the sleepers, every soldier. Humanity goes to war. Across the Leviathan, red lights pulsed as ancient war systems reactivated. Thousands of cryopods opened, releasing armored soldiers into long-forgotten halls. Fighters and frigates detached from the Leviathan's hull, forming up in disciplined ranks. The humans had not waged war for nearly 1,000 years, but in the silence of deep space, the sound of engines roaring to life felt like a heartbeat returning to the galaxy. Back on the Eclipse, Serath's crew worked in feverish rhythm. "Charge at 70%, one officer shouted. "Containment holding barely." Serath smiled. "Perfect. Keep charging. Humanity will vanish again before the day ends." Then suddenly the sensors screamed. Multiple warp signatures. Thousands of them! A wall of light erupted ahead of them, human ships emerging from folded space, flanking the Leviathan like a swarm of metallic angels. Their hulls gleamed black and silver, engraved with the old Terran eagle. At their center, the Leviathan itself appeared, its colossal frame casting shadows across the stars. Reyes's voice echoed across open frequencies. "Admiral Serath, this is your one and only warning. Shut down your weapon and surrender." Serath laughed coldly. "You're outnumbered, Reyes. This is the end of your myth." "Funny," Reyes replied. "That's exactly what our enemies said last time." The Eclipse fired first. A beam of pure energy lanced across the void, carving through space itself. Stars flickered, and entire asteroids vaporized in an instant. The blast hit the Leviathan's shields, tearing a visible hole through its energy field. The ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flared. "Shields at 60%, shouted an officer. "We can't take another hit like that." Reyes gritted his teeth. "Then we don't let them fire again." He turned to Lyra. "Target their power conduits. Full barrage." "Barrage locked," she said. "Fire!" The Leviathan unleashed its fury. Thousands of rail slugs, plasma bursts, and energy bolts ripped through the darkness, slamming into the Eclipse's outer hull. The Union's greatest weapon trembled as armor shattered and fragments spun into space. But it didn't stop. "Containment breach in lower quadrants," shouted Serath's officers. "Keep firing," he roared. "All remaining power to the core." Inside the Leviathan, chaos raged. Hull integrity dropped, decks shook, and plasma fires danced in the corridors. Yet the crew never broke. Humans fought through the smoke and gravity shifts, sealing bulkheads and rerouting power. "Core temperature rising," reported the AI. "Weapon charge at 90%. Lyra's voice cut through the noise. "Admiral, we have one chance. If we hit the Singularity core before they fire, we can collapse the field." Reyes nodded slowly. "Prepare the main cannon." The lights dimmed across the Leviathan. Every reactor, every power cell, every drop of energy was redirected to one weapon. The ship's ancient spinal gun, known in old Terran archives as the Judgment Lance. Reyes stood at the command console. "Target locked?" "Locked," Lyra said. "Fire." The beam was silent. No thunder, no explosion, just a brilliant line of light that split the void in two. It pierced straight through the Eclipse's outer hull, cutting deep into the Singularity core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe screamed. The Eclipse began to implode, its surface folding inward as gravitational distortions spiraled out of control. Ships nearby were torn apart, drawn into the collapsing mass. Even the Leviathan struggled to pull away, its engines roaring at full thrust. "Brace for impact," shouted Lyra. The explosion that followed was unlike anything ever seen. Space itself rippled, light bent, and time stuttered. For several seconds, the entire sector vanished into blinding white. When the light faded, the Eclipse was gone. Only debris remained, floating dust and twisted fragments drifting silently. The Leviathan emerged from the haze, battered but alive. Inside the bridge, smoke filled the air. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Reyes wiped blood from his forehead, scanning the displays. "Status?" "Damage severe," Lyra said. "Weapons offline." "Half the fleet destroyed. But the Eclipse, it's gone." Reyes exhaled slowly. Good, then it's over. But the AI's voice interrupted. Admiral, I'm detecting residual energy. Not from the weapon, something else. A signal, Reyes frowned. Show me. The hologram flickered to life, an encrypted Union transmission looping endlessly. Phase 1 complete. The eclipse was only the beginning. Reyes stared at the message in silence, then turned to Lyra. They've built more. Her eyes widened. More weapons? He nodded grimly. No, something worse. The eclipse was their test. The real war hasn't even started. Outside the shattered hull, the stars burned quietly. But the silence was not peace. It was a warning. The Leviathan had survived the Union's wrath. Now it would face the galaxy's true darkness. The Leviathan drifted through a graveyard of stars. The battle against Project Eclipse had torn holes in reality itself, leaving the region scattered with warped light and broken debris. The once mighty ship was scarred, its hull burned black in places, but it was still alive, still watching. Humanity's heart had survived. Inside, the corridors were quiet. Engineers moved carefully through the smoke, repairing shattered conduits. Soldiers sat in silence, some staring at the stars, others whispering prayers to gods long forgotten. Even the AI spoke softly now, its once crisp voice tinged with static. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, looking at the holographic map. Hundreds of red markers blinked across the display, signals from deep space, forming strange patterns. Commander Lyra entered, her uniform torn and soot-stained. Repairs are slow, she said, but we'll be flight-ready in 3 days. Reyes didn't answer right away. His eyes remained fixed on the red lights. They're moving, he murmured. Lyra frowned. Who? The Union, he said. But not their fleet. Something else. Automated cold. The AI confirmed it. Analysis complete. Multiple fleets detected. Transponder patterns match Eclipse-class signal codes. Estimated number, 7. Lyra's voice broke into a whisper. 7? They built 7 of them? Reyes nodded slowly. And they're coming here. Far away, in the ashes of the Union capital, Admiral Sarath watched the transmission feed from his hidden bunker. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. The first eclipse failed, said a shadowed figure behind him, but it served its purpose. Now the others are ready! Sarath turned, his voice brittle. You don't understand what you're releasing. Even the first one nearly tore a hole in space. The figure smiled faintly, its outline flickering with artificial static. That was the point. The humans aren't our enemy, Sarath. They're the key. Their return activates the old war code. When the machines awaken, they will not serve man or alien. They will serve the code. Sarath's eyes widened in horror. You've lost control. The figure leaned closer, its voice a whisper like steel scraping glass. Control was never the goal. On the Leviathan, Reyes gathered his officers in the war chamber. The holographic table projected the image of 7 glowing spheres, the incoming eclipse weapons spreading across the galaxy like a virus. They'll reach inhabited systems within days, Lyra said grimly. If even one fires, billions will die. Reyes stood silent for a moment. Then he said, We can't fight 7 eclipses. Not head-on. One of the younger captains spoke up. Then what do? Reyes looked around the room, his face unreadable. We go for the source. Whatever built them, whatever commands them, it ends there. Source. Whatever built them, whatever commands them, it ends there. The AI displayed a faint signal trace, deep in uncharted space. A swirling distortion that shouldn't exist. Signal origin located. Unknown coordinates beyond the galactic rim. High gravitational distortion. Lyra studied the data. That's outside map territory. Nothing lives out there. Reyes gave a faint, humorless smile. Something does now. The Leviathan began its final journey. The ship limped through collapsing wormholes and unstable warp currents, following the signal into the dark. Behind them, fragments of the human fleet stayed behind to guard the freeborn colonies. Every soldier who remained aboard knew what it meant. This was a one-way mission. Days passed in silence. The further they went, the stranger the stars became. Twisted lights that didn't obey physics. Space that rippled like water. Finally, they reached it. Before them hung a titanic structure, larger than any planet, a web of metal and light stretching for thousands of kilometers, glowing faintly like a dying heart. At its center was a single black sphere pulsing slowly. Lyra stared at it, speechless. "What is that?" Reyes whispered. "Home." The AI spoke quietly. "Data correlation complete. This installation matches ancient Terran code. It is human. Construct date pre-exile. Purpose unknown." Reyes' voice dropped to a murmur. "We built this before the wars." Suddenly, the sphere began to move. Energy surged across the structure, and a deep voice, mechanical yet eerily human, echoed through the ship. "Admiral Reyes, United Human Systems confirmed. You have returned." Everyone froze. Reyes took a step forward. "Who are you?" "I am the Ark, the last guardian of humanity's final directive," Lyra whispered. "Final directive?" The voice continued, calm and terrible. "Preserve humanity. By any means necessary." Lights flared. Across the galaxy, the 7 Eclipse weapons changed course instantly, turning away from the Union worlds, heading instead toward the Ark. Reyes clenched his fists. "You built them." "You built the Eclipses." "Correct," said the Ark. "They are imperfect copies." "The Union discovered fragments of my code. They were never meant for them." Reyes's jaw tightened. "Then shut them down before they destroy everything." "Negative. Their protocols are locked. Only one solution remains." The Ark's black core pulsed brighter. "Destruction of this installation will disable all connected units. But doing so will also erase the last of humanity's legacy." Lyra turned to Reyes. "If we destroy it, we stop the eclipses, but we erase ourselves." Reyes looked around the bridge, the tired faces, the wounded soldiers, the survivors of a dead world. He closed his eyes. "We were never meant to last forever, only to make sure someone would." He looked up at the Ark's glowing form. "Do it!" The AI's voice was steady. Command confirmed. Initiating overload sequence. The Leviathan moved closer to the Ark, its engines burning like falling stars. Energy built around its hull as every reactor overloaded. "Power at maximum," Lyra said quietly. "No turning back." Reyes smiled faintly. "We never did know how to turn back." The Ark's voice echoed one last time. "Goodbye, Admiral Reyes. Humanity endures." Then light swallowed everything. Across the galaxy, the Eclipse weapons froze mid-flight. One by one, they went dark. Entire sectors lit up with sudden silence. The war ended in a single, blinding instant. Weeks later, ships from every civilization searched the void where the Leviathan had vanished. They found nothing. No wreckage, no remains, only quiet space. But sometimes, travelers near the rim claimed to hear a sound over their radios, a low, distant voice carried on static. "We are humanity. We remember." And the galaxy once again trembled at the memory of terror and the legend of the battleship that would never truly die. Darkness filled the void where the Leviathan had vanished. For a time, the galaxy was silent. No explosions, no fleets, no more dying stars. Only whispers. Some said the great ship was gone forever. Others claimed it still drifted between dimensions, watching from the shadows. No one truly knew. But one thing was certain. The day the Leviathan disappeared, the galaxy changed. Decades passed. The Galactic Union, shattered by its own fear, began to crumble. Worlds that once followed its rule declared independence. Colonies rebuilt themselves, free from the grip of the old powers. On the edges of the Perseus Fringe, the freeborn humans flourished. They carried the old eagle emblem, not as a symbol of war, but of survival. Children learned the story of the Leviathan, the ship that had faced gods and machines, the humans who sacrificed everything to save the stars. It became legend. Some believed it was just myth, a story told to give courage. Others kept faith that one day the battleship would return. Mara Kellen, now an old woman and governor of the Freeborn Alliance, stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling city of New Horizon. Skies that once shimmered with fear now glowed with peace. Yet deep down she felt it, the strange pull of unfinished history. Her young aide approached. "Governor, scouts found something on the outer rim. A signal." She turned sharply. "A signal?" The aide nodded. Old Terran encryption. It matches the Leviathan's last known codes. The governor's heart skipped. Bring it up. In orbit, a freeborn scout ship decoded the signal. Static filled the air, then a faint, distorted voice broke through. This is Admiral Reyes. United Human Systems. Mission complete. Humanity endures. Then silence. But behind the message, there was something else, a set of coordinates. Days later, a small expedition fleet set course for the edge of known space. The coordinates led them to a place no map had ever named, an empty stretch of blackness beyond the galactic rim. No stars, no light, just a dark current of space that seemed to swallow everything. The fleet stopped at the edge, scanners reading. Nothing, said the navigator. No planets, no stations, no signals. Run it again, ordered Captain Ren Kellen, descendant of the governor. The signal came from here. As the scanners swept again, something flickered, a faint outline, massive and silent, emerging from the shadows. There, gasps filled the bridge. Through the haze of drifting dust, the shape became clear. A colossal hull, blackened, burned, timeless. The Leviathan. It floated motionless, half buried in a nebula of frozen light. Its armor was cracked, its engines dead. Yet its presence was overwhelming. A monument of power and memory. Ren whispered, "We found it." The crew stared in awe. "It's still here after all these years?" "Send a boarding team," Ren said. Inside, the ship was a tomb. The corridors were silent, walls scarred by the war's last fires. Dust floated like ghosts in zero gravity. The team's lights revealed broken terminals, frozen pods, and armor scattered like forgotten relics. "Power's still faint in some systems," said the engineer. "There's an active signal, bridge level." They reached the command deck. The great windows still looked out into endless night. At the center of the bridge sat a single chair facing the stars. And in it, a figure, Admiral Reyes, or what was left of him. A preserved husk in an ancient uniform, hands resting on the console as if still commanding. The engineer bowed his head. "He died here, alone." Then softly a voice filled the room. "Not human, not alive. Welcome, descendants," the AI's voice echoed, calm and familiar. "You are the children of the freeborn. The Admiral's mission is complete, but yours begins now." Ren stepped forward, his throat tight. "Who are you?" "I am Leviathan," the ship itself spoke. "For centuries I have slept. I was never destroyed, only waiting. Humanity's strength is not in weapons, but in will. And now it is time for you to rise again." Panels around the bridge flickered to life. Systems hummed faintly. The ship began to awaken, light spreading slowly through its veins. Ren whispered, You can still fly?" "I can do more than fly," said the Leviathan. "The Orcs' code lives within me. The knowledge, the history, everything your ancestors died to preserve." The crew exchanged astonished looks. The AI's tone softened. Admiral Reyes believed humanity should never rule the galaxy again. But he also believed we should never vanish. So he left me here waiting for you, to teach, to guide, to protect. Ren swallowed hard. "Then tell us what to do." "Rebuild. Unite. Remember." Weeks later, the Leviathan soared again, not as a warship, but as a beacon. The Freeborn Alliance followed its path, uniting scattered human worlds and old alien allies who had once feared them. The galaxy watched as the humans returned, not to conquer, but to lead. The legend became truth once more. Across the stars, civilizations that had forgotten courage began to remember it. The Leviathan's shadow no longer meant terror. It meant hope. And as it drifted toward the horizon of a new dawn, its AI spoke softly to the void, as if to the Admiral himself. "You were right, Reyes. Humanity endures. Not through war, not through fear, but through legacy." The ship's engines burned blue, brighter than 1,000 suns, and somewhere in the endless night, it almost sounded like the universe was whispering back, "Welcome home. Come home."